Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Life Real Talk with Nina. That would be me. And my guest today is Stefanie Dougherty, and we've known each other for a year plus, nearly 2 years now. We met through a common friend, and Stephanie was was in the first ever video challenge that we used to run quite frequently last year when we were all homebound and had didn't know what to do with ourselves, right? So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yes, I'm very excited that we got you, and we got you at this time of the year because Stephanie is a plant-based coach. Is that the
Yeah,
right way to introduce you?
yeah, you can.
So as we all go into the gluttony season of Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever, New Year's, I figured it would be really appropriate to talk about to Stephanie about how to survive all of this, but with still having wonderful meals and all of that comes with the holidays. And Iris is watching and saying, "Yay! Hi,
Hi,
Iris."
Iris.
She was also one of our original challenge takers, right? Yeah, that's how
Mhm.
we all met.
That's right. Yep, that's how we met.
So, Stephanie, just introduce yourself. Not just only what you do now, and why you're doing it, but also, and I can prompt you again, sort of what your food journey has been, because I think that's always really interesting for people to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, again, my name is Stefanie Dougherty. My company is called Green Sage. I am a plant based lifestyle coach. So, I'm a plant based cooking instructor and nutrition educator. So, I help busy people kind of add more healthy, whole food, plant based meals to their daily rotation or weekly rotation, kind of skip the learning curve and fast forward directly to eating more healthfully. So that's what I do. And I offer online Zoom based cook along classes, which is really nice because everyone comes and attends virtually and cooks in their own kitchen with me. So it's kind of like having a virtual cooking instructor in your kitchen with you, semi private lesson type of a format. And I also work one on one with people to help them kind of really integrate a plant based diet and lifestyle into their lives.
And what I love hearing is that you're sort of talking about it being a gradual process, right?
Yes. Yeah, I usually recommend a gradual transition. There
Mm-hmm.
are several reasons for that. I will say if you watched a documentary and you're really like hot to become vegan, I
Mm-hmm.
can support you with that too, an overnight shift. But for most people, it's just setting you up for better success if
Yeah.
you take that transition more gradually. It helps you learn your dishes along the way, learn what foods you need to buy, but it also helps your body, gives your body time to adjust to a new diet. You always have to do that so that you can, your gut microbiome and everything can adapt to the new foods as well.
Yes, for sure. Because I mean, yeah, I'm sure your stomach otherwise, and your digestive system would be like, "Holy crap, where's my meat?
Exactly.
Where's my
Exactly.
milk?"
And there's a lot more fiber, so that's usually a little bit of a shock for people too.
I
Yeah.
could imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit before I forget to ask you about this because I have so many questions for you. About sort of your diet journey, if, from like, from birth.
Okay.
I don't want to scare people, but just
Sure.
your journey.
Yeah, sure. I can do that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very American, Italian American, predominantly in the culture in my household growing up, meat and potatoes household. So the thing was though that I didn't. So it's honestly, so it's very much like most people can relate to. But me personally, I just never really liked meat. So when I went away to college, I just declared myself vegetarian, but I wasn't really doing it that healthfully. So, like a lot of college kids, pizza, fries, a lot of ice cream, things like that. I was lacto-ovo vegetarian, so I was still eating dairy products and eggs.
Hmm.
But around my mid 20s, I started an Ashtanga yoga practice, which is very kind of a disciplined, regimented practice. And I did it every day in the morning, first thing when I woke up. And over the years of practicing that yoga, it gave me a really nice opportunity to test how my lifestyle choices from the last 24 hours was affecting my body each morning as I moved through the same series of
Yep.
postures. And some patterns started to emerge, and I realized that my body just felt stronger, lighter, less inflamed, more flexible when I did not eat animal products at all. So the dairy and the eggs as well. There were some other things I noticed, refined sugars, alcohol, things like that, that affected my body. So concurrently, I was also just super passionate about reading about nutrition. And a lot of what I was reading about the benefits of a plant-based diet really supported what I was experiencing in my own body. And over time, I just, believe it or not, like I kind of lost my appetite for these foods that weren't serving me. So I slowly dropped the eggs, and eventually the dairy products were the last to go. And now I've been fully vegan, fully whole food plant-based for over 10 years.
Which I mean, I love the story, you know, that you had actually, because I think that's how it's really sticks. If you can experience it, really, not just somebody telling you should be doing this, because you can always find somebody to tell you should be, like, you know, drinking at least 5 glasses of wine with dinner because that's really healthy. You know, you always will find somebody to support whatever you're looking for. But to really be able to experience that in your own body and say, like, this is not good for me, so I'm not going to do it anymore. I mean, that's the super ideal situation. So I mean, since, you know, I think a lot of us are probably so, and me included, I'm still not in tune anymore with what is good and not good for my body, because especially since I stopped being a jock, you know, I just, I'm all head now. I'm all intellectual. I'm all, you know, there's the physicality has kind of stopped. And with that, any notion of what's good and not good for my body, right? So how can I how do you help people get into that experience? Because I'm assuming that is a part of that is important for people to have some of that experience,
Absolutely.
to stick
Yeah.
with being a vegetarian and then a vegan.
Yeah. There's some great ways to practice that level of mindfulness that you need to start to observe these things in your body. And so when I was practicing yoga, I was meditating each day after my yoga practice. And even if you're not doing the full yoga practice, you can incorporate mindfulness or meditation practice in your daily life. That only takes 15 minutes, but it can make a world of difference. And so that's what I use now to kind of check in with myself. Because you practice that by just sitting quietly in the morning, but that skill you can take with you all day long. You can check in with yourself, you know, when you're about to make a food decision, when you're about to eat, you know, do I need to eat the donut in the break room at the office, or can I wait half an hour and eat an apple when I get home? And these are the kinds of decisions that start to become habitual for you when you make it a habit to check in with yourself. So a daily meditation practice of just 15 minutes can really help a lot with kind of getting back in tune with your body and observing your own habits and mindsets.
I love hearing that. I did TM for many years. I think I still remember my mantra. So that's I think that's a great tip to allow yourself to not just run through your life, you know, in a panic and just always be in reaction mode, but actually.
That's right. Yeah. And many of the decisions we make over the course of the day do operate on autopilot. So if you can get yourself to a position where you're kind of taking control of each decision, then it can be really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So, so practically speaking, you know, I want to live more healthfully. I want to live more in tune with my values, and I think this is yet another component, right? So, you know, sustainability is, especially right now with the meat going on. I mean, it's such a huge part of our lives now that you know, eating's and shopping and living sustainably is something we just have to do, right? So, what is the effect of us eating plant-based on in terms of sustainability?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are really kind of three motivators to adopting a whole food plant-based diet, or even just mostly plant-based. One is the health aspect, obviously. The second is animal welfare. And the third is a sustainable diet for the planet. And animal agriculture worldwide is responsible for so much of the greenhouse gas
Yep.
emissions. Different scientists estimate that at different proportions, but many say that it exceeds like the transportation sector, for
Yep.
example. So
I've heard that too. Yeah.
yeah, to the extent that we can each just individually take action to reduce our own contribution to that giant amount of
Mhm.
damage to the planet, it's, you know, the better it is.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm just sort of my mind is immediately going to like the back of venison, which was caught in which my mother will do around Christmas, and it's caught or shot. I should not caught, Nina. It's shot, in my valley, and it's totally local. But I think there's really, I mean, who anymore does local, right? I mean, I live in New York City when I'm not in Switzerland, and there's nothing I can shoot here, unless I want to go to jail. So yeah, so I think it's really being aware that even if it's just me, one person, or me and my household, we can actually, if we choose to no longer eat meat or choose to no longer support the animal agriculture ecosystem, we can really make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. It makes a difference, not just on greenhouse gas emissions, but on fresh water use, obviously, animal welfare, because
Mhm.
actually 99% of the meat that's commercially available in the United States comes from factory farms.
Yep.
They're really difficult to find meat that has been raised in any kind of a, healthful circumstance. So yeah.
I would imagine that there's a lot of mislabeling happening, right?
Yeah.
This stuff is not very well controlled. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a whole other topic for another
For
day,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
So when, last year when we did the challenge and I was watching your videos every day for 30 days, and you sat down and you put out, I still have it, this amazing, and, quote me old fashioned, I'm still somebody who prints out things. So you created this beautiful quarantine cooking handbook. Um, and so, what are some tips? Because I'm looking at the ingredients and my mouth is watering. I'm like, oh my God, this is all so wonderful. But like my pantry, I'm not a big cook at all. I mean, I live in New York City. My cooking skills
Mhm.
are pull out the menu or, these days, pull out the phone app and order. So, how do I get started so I don't have overwhelm?
Okay, yes, that's a really good question. That's exactly what I help people with. Thank you, by the way, for buying that book and printing it out for
Of
yourself. I feel
course.
really honored by that. And actually, I'd also love to say what an amazing experience your video challenge was. For me, that was just absolutely revolutionary in terms of like giving myself the confidence to appear on video and really helped me to connect with my audience right at a very important time when I
Yeah,
was launching my
yeah.
ebook. And yeah, so that was really wonderful.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I must say, I mean, it was a wonderful experience for me too. I
Oh,
think it,
good.
it was pure love all around.
Yeah, it was a fantastic experience. I
Yeah.
totally agree. Yeah, so I created the quarantine cooking handbook because it became kind of overnight difficult to find what you needed at the grocery store on any given day. And people were cooking at home much more often. So
Mhm.
they were looking up recipes on the internet and they weren't being able to find the ingredients they needed. And so this was a new approach, or not a new approach, but a different approach to
Yeah.
cooking where in the quarantine cooking handbook there are formulas. So there are different like recipe sets, like soups or smoothies or salads or pizza, things like that. And it's a way to kind of improvise, follow it
Yeah.
with a structure. So each formula will tell you how much of each food you need from a different set of categories, and then
Hmm.
you put them all together following the instructions. So it gave you a chance to improvise or use what you could find at the grocery store. And
Hmm.
that's actually a really nice solution for you for your question about how not to feel overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
you can just go to the grocery store, pick the foods from each category that sound good to you, and then
Hmm.
throw them together in accordance with the instructions that are provided in the book, and you get a really beautiful meal. And you can, the next time you do it, you can experiment with other ingredients, so it gives you some structure to get creative.
Yep. I love that. I really love that. And I remember I did cook a couple of things, but again, sometimes the ingredients, were the challenge. So
Mhm.
having having this sort of the building blocks was really cool. So let's say you know want to eat more healthy, full snacks. So my go-to, I run to the kitchen, and I'll get some cheese and some crackers and some, to be a good girl, I'll add a radish or a cucumber or something like that, and or
Okay.
a couple of leaves of baby spinach. So what are some ideas that are sort of on the run, or quick and easy snacks, that are also really, that are filling, not just the proverbial half a carrot and then you're supposed to be satisfied for the next 6 hours.
Well, sure. If you feel like an apple is not going to cut it, then yeah, I do have some other quick snacks you can get if you prefer something sweet. My best, and actually I did a video on this during our challenge.
I
My
remember
best
that.
really quick tip is to get a medjool date, take out
Mhm.
the pit, and so you have 2 halves of a date, and then just press a walnut half into each side and eat it, and it's so delicious because the
Mhm.
date provides like a caramel type flavor, and then you've got the walnut, and it gives you like the sweetness and the richness of the walnut, and it tastes like basically what I used to call like a nature's Snickers bar. And it gives you a nice little burst of energy, especially if you're craving something sweet in the middle of the afternoon, or if you've just worked out and you need a little bit of extra fuel to go back to work or
Yeah.
get on with your evening. So that's a really nice one, and it's super quick, very
Yeah.
portable. But if you're more of a savory snacker and you're at home, and a lot of your people who are in your audience are solopreneur type
Yep.
people, a really quick one is to open a can of chickpeas, drain out the liquid, and dump them into a little frying pan. You can add vegetable stock or a tiny little bit of oil and saute them for just a few minutes. And right before they become golden brown, sprinkle them with your favorite spice seasoning. So if you have a curry powder you like at home, or Trader Joe's has a really delicious chili lime seasoning blend that I love on
Mhm.
chickpeas.
Yeah.
And it gives you that like little tang of the chili and lime. And chickpeas are super good for you. They've got
Yeah.
a ton of plant-based protein and fibers. So yeah, that's a really nice one. And it snacks like almost like popcorn. I actually call it chickpea popcorn.
That sounds really wonderful. I actually just saw a chickpea based popcorn similar snack that was being peddled on Shark Tank.
Oh, really? See?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's trending.
I love Shark Tank is sort of I still have work to do, but I'm moving myself. It's 9 in the evening. I'm now sitting on the sofa to work. So that's always sort of my background is Shark Tank.
Nice.
So I know about random things that are or are not being supported. So that sounds actually really nice. I'd love to try. I mean, chickpea cans I have because I make my own hummus. That's one of the few things I make myself.
Yeah, great.
So that's a great idea. So what are sort of so let's say you are you're traveling, or you are in a family where you have a hard die, like I need my meat every night kind of person. How do you navigate that?
Yeah. So are you talking about for the
Or two
holidays?
questions. I think it's two questions, right? One is,
Okay.
how do you navigate family that is totally not interested in any of this? Oh, here she goes again, right? And or he, and how do you navigate travel? So let's start with the holiday one, because I think, or the family one, because I think that's the more relevant, right?
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, it has become so much easier, by the way, to lead a plant-based lifestyle than it was when I first went vegetarian, 27 years ago. It is because it's just in people's minds now. They understand it. It's not like people don't think you've joined a cult.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, it's good. If you're talking about someone who would like to eat more plant-based, but for example, their spouse or their children are not on board with that, that's one of the things I help people with specifically. And there are just a lot of really nice ways to create. So you don't want to cook 2 meals every time you're cooking for yourself and your loved ones. Really nice ways to make meals that you can add, your animal-based protein to at the end, but you reserve some for yourself without. So that becomes just one small extra step instead of the whole process of doing 2 meals.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're talking about going home for the holidays and you don't want turkey this year, I've been there too, so I understand that. Um, it's important, I think, to have good communication with your family members about this,
Yeah.
because Aunt Esther has an apple pie, and every year she looks forward to making it for you. And if you're going to decline it, you have to be really clear about it's not personal.
Yeah.
Um, so you just, if you can communicate that in advance and bring something that you are excited to eat to share with the rest of the family. I've
Hmm.
always done that for years and years now, and it goes over usually pretty well, because what people are surprised to understand is how flavorful and delicious a
Yeah.
plant-based meal can be. It doesn't have to, there's sort of this misconception that it tastes like cardboard if it's healthy, and it's,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's just not the case.
Mm.
And so that's sort of my passion, and my mission is to
Right.
show people how to cook this way, to make it flavorful and appealing and delicious for the whole family. Even you don't even a lot of times even have to tell them necessarily that it's plant-based, but
Right.
um,
Because it's just another dish. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
would
Because I
warn
mean,
people away. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thought. I said I
yeah.
would
Yeah. Go.
warn
Go.
you away from trying to convert your whole family. I think leading by example is probably the best approach when you're sitting at the table and you're sharing your dish. And if someone asks you why you're not eating turkey this year, one really good tip I think is to tell them that you're trying out a plant-based diet. And if they press you on the reasons for that, I think the best thing to do is to say, I'm really happy to have this conversation, but I'd like to do it after dinner, because you don't want to make anyone feel wrong or judged
Yeah.
while they're eating their own meal. So yeah, there are some diplomatic ways to handle that, and that would be one. But yeah, just try to be an ambassador. If you can bring a dish that's lovely and people can enjoy, maybe it'll open their minds. But
Mhm.
generally speaking, trying to convert or to preach is not necessarily the best way to go about it.
Yeah. 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 I mean, when I'm in Switzerland, I live with my mom, or I don't have a kitchen where I can bring a dish. And then I'm also deemed to be the worst cook in the family, because everybody else, it's not that I'm a bad cook, it's just everybody else in my family is a fabulous cook.
Really good. Okay.
So when I want to cook a meal, there's sort of this, oh dear, Nina's cooking. So, um, but it is a culture, and this brings me to the travel question. I mean, if I'm in a Swiss restaurant, I often look at the menu, like how would it be if I was a vegetarian or even a vegan, and I often see, I mean, it's getting better, but there's always like there's one choice. The other day, something was in a restaurant, stamped vegetarian, that had fish in it, and I pointed it out, and they were like, "Whatever, like, why are you pointing this out?" And I'm like, "It's wrong." Um, and then I was sold on something else as vegan. I'm like, there's egg and butter in here, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, that's not vegan. So I think, I think like when you're in New York or in LA or in San Francisco or in Chicago, or, any kind of like sort of, bigger urban setting, you probably have that knowledge base of what is what. But I think once you're sort of away from the super mainstream, or you're in Europe, that might fall by the wayside a bit.
Yes, I have traveled quite a bit in my life, and it did used to be much harder.
Mhm.
Now, and like for example, when I lived in France, it was very difficult. I was served fish often as a vegetarian. Um, Now I think there's a bit of a growing awareness. That said, if you're in a restaurant that only has 8 dishes on their menu, a small rural restaurant, it can be a little bit difficult. You can call in advance and explain what you're looking for, and
Yeah,
actually, that's really a good approach in any
yeah,
restaurant, no matter where you are,
yeah,
especially if it's an omnivore restaurant with not a lot of existing dishes on the menu. One skill I've developed is to look at a menu and take a look at the side dishes that come with, a meat dish, for example, and
yeah.
ask only for those things. Like if they serve their fish with on a bed of rice with vegetables, then I would just ask for a larger portion of those side dishes.
Mm,
Um, and every culture has, lentils and beans and vegetables and fruits. whole grains, all of those things are still on the table, literally and figuratively. So yeah, you can usually find something, no matter where you travel in the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess you also just make different restaurant choices when you know that this is where it's headed.
Yeah.
And then, so what happens? Let's say, you ordered the rice and that rice was cooked in a chicken stock, let's say, or
Okay.
something like that. What actually happens? Does your body react to that, or what is sort of the threshold where it gets dicey?
Yeah, if you've been plant-based for a really long time and you haven't eaten meat of any kind, and then somehow you accidentally take a bite of some meat, depending on how much you actually ingested, it could upset your stomach a bit.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. And I think that's, if that's like an obstacle in someone's mind, I would say just, you don't have to be so concerned, because
Yeah.
it really, I mean, vegetable stock, that's going to be, chicken stock, that's going to be pretty light on your system, to be honest with you. It's unfortunate if you're trying to make these deliberate choices, but it's not going to make you not a vegan anymore. It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
your vegan
Exactly.
card revoked or anything. So you just, it's not a perfect process. It never is.
Yeah.
So what really matters in my mind is what you do most of the time.
Yeah.
That's what makes the biggest impact on your health and your wellness. So as long as you're trying your best most of the time, I feel like those little deviations aren't so bad.
Right. I think it's all about, living in the grays and not sort of being stuck in that black and white,
Right.
all or nothing, which goes for pretty much anything we do in life.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So so Thanksgiving, what are some of the, so you have a Thanksgiving cooking class that's coming up, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
Actually,
yeah,
go
go ahead.
ahead. I was going to say, this is going to be the first official announcement about it. So the people that are watching
Ooh,
this are getting the hot scoop on this.
that's awesome. So tell us about that.
Great. I am really excited about it. So I'm going to do, like I said before, I offer live Zoom cook along classes throughout the year. And I'm doing a special event one for Thanksgiving. It's a Green Sage Vegan Thanksgiving cook along class. And it's going to be Sunday, November 14th, 4 p.m. for those of you on the East Coast, at 1 p.m. over here on the West Coast. And we're going to do a 3-course plant-based Thanksgiving feast. It's going to have a main course, a side dish, and dessert. And those are, the main course is a stuffed acorn squash with a really delicious mixture of lentils and quinoa, sweetened cranberries and pistachios with a fig balsamic drizzle. It's really, really amazing. And it looks so beautiful as each person gets their own half of an acorn squash filled with this beautiful food. The side dish is going to be roasted sweet potatoes with a maple pecan glaze. And then for dessert, we're doing mini pumpkin pies with a cashew-based vanilla sweet cream on top. And we're going to make that all together on Sunday, a couple weeks before Thanksgiving, so that you have a chance to learn these recipes with the full live guidance that I'm offering, and do it in kind of a community setting and kind of get it practiced, because it's always good if you can practice a meal before you serve it to your guests or to your family.
Yeah, especially for such an important thing like Thanksgiving, right? Which I always feel is like the most important holiday. So I'm going to put the link into the comments. So let me just do this right now. So it's one course. It's one cooking session.
Yes.
And then do people get a shopping list in advance? I would imagine.
That's right. Yeah, all the information is on at the link on my website. But yeah, we'll have a shopping list in advance, and we'll have the live session, and there will be printable versions of each recipe for you to keep, and then a replay. So if you can't make it live, you can tune in and watch any portion of that or all of it if you'd like, to do for yourself at a time that's better for you. And I love that you said that Thanksgiving for you is the most important holidays. I think that's, if there's maybe one message that anyone takes away from this discussion, I think it's that, especially for one of the most significant or important meals, of the most special meals of the year, if you can make choices that are reflective of your values of good health, of living in harmony and peace with the planet and all of the creatures on it, that is worth doing, rather than not to detract from those who love their traditions. But if you're thinking about creating new traditions, about what you're passing down to the people who come after you, as far as maybe creating your own traditions, it's really nice if one of your most special years of meals of the year, reflects your ideals, your values, sort of like an exemplary meal that embodies the things that are most important to you. And that's what I hope to offer in teaching this class, is a way to do that in a way to celebrate the holiday that's so dear to our hearts in a way that expresses our values, and that we can truly enjoy from a sensory level too. It's because it's delicious and it's beautiful, and it's in harmony with the things that we believe in.
Well, I'm going to sign up for this. I just realized I'm actually in New York on the 14th. So, yeah, because I think if we don't, we always show up like, I think a lot of us do this, so that we sort of go into this passive mode when it becomes like the big family meal, and mom, and then maybe if there's no, if your mom is not there anymore, unfortunately, then the oldest sibling or the aunt or whoever will take over. And it's a tradition that's always been a tradition, but traditions are also there to be updated and to be refined. And again, you don't have to throw out the child with the bathwater, which I don't know whether that's an American saying or a German saying. Is it also?
Yeah, we say the baby with the bathwater. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, good. I never know. I always have to be careful. Very weird things have come out of my mouth. Anyway, so if you just bring that one dish, or volunteer to cook that one dish, and it's really yummy, then it can be like, wow, we really love this. Let's add this. And then at least you now have a choice, other than. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was doing a detox, and which I like to do in the fall anyway. And so Thanksgiving was in the middle of the detox, and I'd done so well on it. I didn't want to like ruin, black and white thinking. I didn't want to ruin the detox with Thanksgiving. So I did take up, go to a place I was invited to, with very dear friends of mine. And I just ate very selectively. And I don't remember having less of a good time. It's, and yes, the food is a big part of it, and yes, the food is wonderful, and enjoying a nice wine and whatever. But in the end, it's about being with people and having a good laugh and sharing stories and just being relaxed and spending time. And the food part, you really, you don't remember the food part in a way. You know what I mean? And I think that is where I always try to be mindful. Like when I stare at a piece of dessert, or I'm a sucker for a good cheesecake, and I'm like, okay, I can have the cheesecake now. Will I remember tomorrow how good that cheesecake was, or the day after? Probably not. I might remember the great conversation I had with the person sitting next to me, but the naughty thing is gonna come and go, right?
That's right. And and we don't even necessarily need to label it naughty or good. If you want to have some cheesecake, that's okay. Have some cheesecake, but that should be a special occasion thing if you're considering your health. And then so you don't have to berate yourself over that. If you want to eat that, that's fine too. But you're so right about it. Just the nostalgia that sometimes we hold on to when we're thinking about the foods we ate at Thanksgiving growing up is much more to do with the people we were with when we ate them than the actual foods themselves. So if you want to substitute foods that are more aligned with your values while you're sharing the special moments with your family and loved ones, I think you can do that without feeling like you're deprived or making a sacrifice. It can be joyful.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And joyful is what it's all about.
That's right.
Not just on Thanksgiving, all the time.
Right.
So any sort of other quick tips that you have for us?
The season gets hectic, right? There's just so much on our plates. And so especially for your entrepreneurs, people working from home, it can be a really helpful thing to just take an hour or two on a weekend and either make a really large pot of soup or bake yourself a batch of muffins. I actually have a muffin recipe that I offer for free when you join my email community. It's right on the homepage of my website. So that will be a great one to start with. It's pumpkin chocolate chip muffins. So it feels like a treat, but it's really quite helpful. And that way you've got either like you can heat up really quick a portion of soup for lunch if you're in the middle of your workday at home. Even at the office, honestly, you can bring that. I used to pack that for my husband. I would just put it in a thermos, heat it up in the morning, put it in a thermos, and send it with him. But you could just heat it up, and then you don't have to grab the junk food because you've got this really wholesome muffin or a really nice filling lunch that you can eat that you created for yourself on the weekend. So it's sort of like an act of self-love to just take those extra hours on the weekend. It's not long, 2 hours maybe, to do both of those things. And then you've got snacks and lunch all week long, and it's going to be something you're going to feel good about eating. And that can really help because we feel even more stress when we're not feeding ourselves well. It's kind of like a nutritional stress that you may not be aware of, but it does take its toll. So if you can fuel yourself well nutritionally, that's going to go a long way to keeping your overall stress level down in the holidays.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I think eating more healthfully. I just discovered turmeric.
Yes.
And I never thought, I mean, I've heard of turmeric before. I'm like, yeah, yet another, whatever. And then I bought a cereal the other day just to try it out it was gluten-free. And I'm trying, to be gluten-free. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I'm feeling so much better. And I really never experienced how a spice could really have that kind of impact, and it was actually quite dramatic because I also, anyway, long story, but I'm like I bought myself a big shaker of turmeric. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm really glad you experienced that.
Yeah.
Spices in particular have the highest level of antioxidants of any foods in the world. So anytime you can add the turmeric, even cinnamon or
cinnamon I love.
Everything, they all really help that effect of antioxidants. It's anti-aging, it's anti-inflammatory, which is probably why you're feeling so good. They promote digestion, boost your immune system. So like that chickpea popcorn recipe I recommended, you could put your turmeric on there, or usually Indian curry powders are very turmeric heavy too. So that's a great one. I'm so glad you experienced that. Thanks for sharing that. That's a really great point to make here tonight.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was instantaneous. I was actually quite blown away. And black pepper, it was turmeric and black pepper in
That's
it.
right.
So I'm now putting that into my own cereal in the morning. And it's not like you taste it. It's just there. It's good for you. So I had another question, and then it just went like poof. So another thing and this is something. So you have a background. I mean, your knowledge about all of this. You have sort of I seem to remember a scientific background, or
actually not exactly. Well, yes, I have a certificate in plant-based nutrition from Cornell. But my original career was as a French translator. So I was a French translator for 18 years, and I started this as like a food blog, a hobby, like a passion project on the side. But I quickly became aware that this, not just a passion for me, but kind of a calling to help people with this. But in the kitchen, I am very self-taught. And I find that puts me in a really nice position to help people kind of skip the learning curve that I went through. I'm a very detail-oriented person too, so you'll notice my lessons are very like I cover all the details for you. I don't leave you in the dark on anything. So I think it's helpful that way. So I like to help people kind of skip over the 2 decades of learning that I did and just fast forward directly to having whole food plant-based meals in their lives. But I did study the nutrition quite extensively. And it's really amazing to see this whole body of science that really supports scientific evidence, really supports that this is an optimal way to eat for human health. Reduces the risk of all of the major chronic diseases that kill the most Americans every year. Dramatically cuts your risk of succumbing to those illnesses to eat this way. So I think it's a really important message to get out there, because you don't have to sacrifice flavor. You don't have to be hungry. You can be very full, and you can do your body and the planet a world of good.
Yeah, totally agree, and very inspiring to to start moving into that direction for sure.
Right.
um, and I think having the details when cooking, for especially for somebody who's not a seasoned cook, is so helpful, because sometimes I read instructions and I'm like, what do they mean? It's like, what does that even mean? So if somebody like give, and for those people for whom it's over explained, then just get over yourself and skip that part,
That's
right?
right. Yeah, you can skim. You can skim, but it's there for the people who need it. Sure.
Yeah, it's like my mom, she reads recipes as a for inspiration, right? She just
Suggestion.
wants to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
what's in there.
yeah.
And I need to follow a little more. If I don't want to get into having to eat a meal that I don't enjoy, I have to follow pretty,
Sorry.
specifically. Yeah. Wonderful. So we put the link into the comments. We'll put it in again now at the end, so people can sign up for your Thanksgiving plant-based cook-along cook class with. That sounds absolutely delicious. And the sooner you sign up, the more time you have at your leisure to go shopping for the
That's right.
ingredients.
That's right.
So sign up right now, because it's already in 11 days, right?
Yeah, it's coming
Yeah.
up, and yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then how else can people work with you?
Yeah, I would love for you to join me on Instagram. That's where you can kind of see kind of a pretty extensive portfolio of the dishes that I teach.
Hmm.
Just kind of scroll my feed on Instagram at Green Sage Life. I would love to connect with you there. And then on my website, I have a place where you can, like I mentioned, join my email community and download the recipe for pumpkin chocolate chip muffins. And about once or twice a month, I'll send out an email. I'm not going to get spammy about it, but I love to share. When I share a new recipe on my blog, then I'll send you an email. Or when I'm about to do a new cooking class, I'll send you an email about that. So you can join me for one of those. I would love to have you. Any friend of Nina's is a friend of mine, so it'd
Oh,
be really
thank
fun
you.
to have you join.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sort of shedding some light on the plant-based diet. And I think the most important takeaway here is that it's not an all or nothing proposition.
That's right.
It is a step-by-step process, and making it part of also being like, I think the mindfulness and the sustainability and the food choices that we make, I think that all comes in one big package, right?
Yeah.
So as we all are doing a better job at recycling and at working on our carbon footprint, we cannot not think about how we feed ourselves.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. It's really true. And I would love to help you make that transition. We can do it
Right.
together, fully supported and gradually so you get used to it.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. So thank you so much for joining us at an ungodly early hour for you. And when we met before we went live, it was still pitch dark out,
It's dark out here, yeah.
and you were sitting sort of in the little pool of your light, of the light that you had at your computer. So I'm like, oh dear. I'm always very thankful of my West Coast friends who agreed to join me for this, because I know it's awfully early for them.
Oh,
So thank you,
thank
and
you for
thank
having
you.
me. It was really an honor to be here, and I always love to talk with you. So
Yes, yeah, I think it's always wonderful. I know I always feel that way. It's nice to have an opportunity to talk about what you're so passionate about, and what is your passion project in your work's life, right? So
thanks.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys. Sign up. Is there a limit on how many people you're allowed to sign up, or
No, everyone's welcome.
okay?
Yeah, I'm happy to accommodate as many people as would like to come.
Awesome. So sign up, and thank you so much for being here, and
Thank you.
we'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Nina. Bye bye.